Hey there, everyone. It's Caitlin, your geeky girlfriend, back again with another episode in my Bookie Babe book review series. Today, I'm going to be reviewing The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. I just finished this book over the weekend, and so finally get to review it for you guys. Before we get started and before we get into the review, as always, if you like what you see on my page, make sure you hit that big red subscribe button and subscribe to my channel for all future content, which includes lots more movie reviews and book reviews coming soon. And if you like my fashion content that you see here on the channel, make sure you jump over to Instagram and follow me at your Geeky Girlfriend for more fashion content and fun over there. So today's review is The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. This book was recommended to me by a coworker of mine. So thank you, Veronica, for the recommendation. She said that this was the book that really got her interested in reading, and therefore, I had to add it to my list. I was able to snag this at a Half Price Books. Got it for just a couple of bucks, so pretty cheap little read. And if you're not familiar, this is where the iconic line "Stay Gold, Ponyboy" comes from, is this novel. So overall, I'll do a quick little overall review, and then I'll get more into the details of it. Overall, I enjoyed the second half of this book better than the first half. The first half drug a little bit for me. Took me kind of a while to get into it. I believe I started this book probably around March, so it took me about 3 months to get all the way through it, and it was a very slow burn to start off. I was only reading about 7 to 10 pages a day before I would kind of be like, okay. And typically with books that are slow burns for me, I just find myself reading the same line over and over again because I'm having a hard time getting into it. But thankfully, the second half picked up, and I was able to kind of burn through the second half of the book very quickly. So there was a movie based on this book starring Tom Cruise, Emilio Estevez, Patrick Swayze, Ralph Macchio, and a couple of other people. So you might have already seen the movie. And The Outsiders is about a gang of they use the word hoods, greasers in the book. Those are some of the terms that they give themselves growing up in America. And they're young kids, like high school kids, not even old enough to be high school graduates, most of them. Ponyboy is the narrator and the main character in the book. His the story follows his perspective, and he is all of 14 in the book. So he's supposed to be like a freshman in high school, and then his buddies and brothers are older than him and kind of make up their little gang of the greasers. And this is just Ponyboy's perspective on the socioeconomic status of their group, the group of the socias, who are like the West Side, more ritzy, rich kids who go to different high schools and have the, clean clothes and coiffed hair and all of that. It gives me very much West Side Story vibes, two gangs kind of rumbling and fighting in the streets, and some of those typical, like, I guess, when you think of gangs, what we would typically think of in terms of our pop culture references. So, like I said, the second half was a lot easier to read than the first half. The first half is just very much introduction into the characters, getting to know them. Ponyboy describes all of them, kind of talks a lot about their home lives, and just kind of gives good character descriptions of all of them. He describes his situation. He lives with his two older brothers, and it just kind of sets the stage for the two rival gangs. What's interesting about the book is the whole book takes place over about 1 week. It starts with Ponyboy leaving a movie theater, getting jumped, and then that leads into a series of events that take place all over 1 week, which when I was reading it, I kind of lost track of that. And it took Ponyboy saying, like, oh, to think that all this happened over 8 days or 10 days. And it kind of puts it back into a different perspective. So the whole book takes place over 1 week. It has, I want to say, like 11 or 12 chapters in it. Chapters are pretty long. Pretty much essentially each chapter is like a day of time. And so that's a good reference, a good frame to keep in mind when you're reading, that each chapter in the book typically would span like a day or like a 12 hours. So there's 12 chapters. And like I said, the first half just kind of sets up the rivalry, sets up the demographics, sets up the characters, and then there is this incident that occurs one night after the two of the boys leave the drive-in, which then spans a whole nother week's worth of events and just sort of this downward spiral. Lots of talk about um, the cycle or the cyclicer, cyclicer, um, like the cycle of gangs. Like if you're born and bred into a gang, you're most likely not going to leave the gang. There's a lot of talk about that, and how to kind of break that cycle and the motivation to break the cycle and all of that in the later half of the book. The latter half also kind of talks about the greasers kind of becoming heroes and how nobody believed it and different things like that. So it does talk a little bit about media bias, societal bias, don't don't judge a book by its cover, like those sorts of underlying themes. What's interesting about the book is this particular copy had a little foreword from the author saying that this book was actually a short story that he wrote in high school and is based loosely on his life as a high school student, which was very interesting. So you could almost say that this was based on a true story. And he talked a little bit about the casting of the movie as well. Overall, since the first half was a little bit of a drag for me, but the second half picked up, I would give this book a 7 out of 10. I would say chapters like 7 through 12, so the last 5 chapters of the book, were really fast and really intriguing. There was some suspense, a little bit of unknown, a little bit of uncertainty going into the ending of the book, but I do feel like the ending was relevant. I felt like the ending was appropriate for the characters, kind of gives you some hope that things are going to improve for this set of characters. And yeah, overall, I think it is appropriate for younger readers. They use some broken English and some broken language in the book, but not a ton of curse words or swear words. It was pretty clean, typical language that you would expect 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old boys to use, and vocabulary that you would expect them to use. I do know that my younger sister-in-law read this book, and she is 14, so it is appropriate for younger readers. I obviously read it as an adult and was fine. Second half, like I said, and I've said it a few times, second half is definitely better. So if you're struggling to get through this book, try and get to chapter 6 or 7, because it does get a lot better after Johnny and Ponyboy go on their week away. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So if you're reading this book, or you're getting to that point, you're getting to the good part, just hang in there. Or if you're somebody who liked every single page, good for you. The beginning was just a little slow for me. So I'm going to give this book a 7 out of 10. I would not read it again. I'm glad that I read it, because now I have that reference in the pop culture, stay gold Ponyboy thing. That's a very classic line from literature. And so now I can go and watch the movie and compare it to the movie, which I always enjoy doing. And the movie stars lots of people that I love. So I look forward to watching that and comparing the two. This was my review of The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. If you have read this book, let me know your score in the comments. Like I said, I give this one a 7 out of 10, and the second half made it a decent book. I would not say it's the best book I've ever read, but I'm glad that I powered through and made it through it. If you guys want to see more content, let me know in the comments what book you want me to read next, and until then, I'll see you guys